afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. I'm the hostess, and my name is Phyllis Italiano. And today we have a couple of very special people who are going to talk to us about the kind of things that we need to do to help our Earth. And they are Darral Morrison from Iowa. How do you like that, folks? And Edwina Van Gold from
Spring.
So I was going to say from what's that street that you live off of? Springs Fireplace. Yes. And so, folks, before we get really into our topic, I would like to know a little bit about you. And so let's start with you, Edwina.
Okay. I am a landscape designer and have been practicing in the United States all around for a very long time, but have ultimately settled out here. And as my retirement gift to myself, I decided to pursue something that was really close to my heart, which was to educate people about managing landscapes without toxins, how dangerous landscape toxins are, both to people, their families, their pets, and the environment, and how easy it is to change your landscape to look basically the same without them. So you're removing a threat to your health and you're doing something really great for the environment. So
and Edwina, you failed to mention also that you come from Westchester County.
Oh, the background. Putnam County, Brewster,
Putnam,
New York.
Right.
Yes, I am from Brewster, so I grew up in the country. It was dairy country when I was growing there. We'd wake up and see cows in the yard all the time from the farm next door. So.
Wow,
Yeah.
and where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
I went to the University of Rhode Island and then the University of Denver, and then I dropped out and just started gardening. And have been gardening ever since. And then when I decided that this was actually a potential career, I started putting my own education together. So I studied at the New York Botanical Garden. I took courses at the New School. It did not ever add up to a degree. I found that I've worked with some amazing people during my career from whom I learned a tremendous amount. But one of our initiatives is to actually address that the landscape industry doesn't have a clear educational path, and we would like to create one.
Oh, that's wonderful. As an educator, I'm all for that.
Oh, good. Yeah, we feel that the landscape industry has the potential to become a massive community of land stewards, of guardians of the earth. And at present, the only thing they're really required to get is a pesticide applicator license. So that kind of skews the...
Good grief.
It skews things. So we think that it would be great to make everyone, you could have a conversation with your landscaper about actually the life process that's happening on your property instead of what you need to kill.
Well, I would be talking to myself since I'm my landscaper.
Then you're an easy one.
And sir, you will tell us about Iowa.
Okay. As you said, Phyllis, I started out in Iowa, spent my first 20 years there, I guess, and went to Iowa State University in landscape architecture. Then I was in the Army, and then I worked in Washington, D.C. for a period of time. And after that, I went back to school, to grad school at the University of Wisconsin, where I learned about prairies and ecosystems and plant communities. And I was really...
Really?
Yeah, and just the idea of looking at the naturally evolving landscape as inspiration for the designed landscape was really important in my evolution, I guess you could say. After getting the grad degree at Wisconsin, I taught there for 12, 13 years. Then I taught at the University of Georgia in environmental design for 20 years. And then I taught as an adjunct at Columbia for 7 years. And I lived in Manhattan for the last 10 years. But 2 weeks ago, I moved back to Wisconsin, where I taught all those years ago. And so I'm sort of full circle now. I'm back home again.
Wow.
And in my time in New York, I've had a great series of projects, all related to native landscape and native plant communities. I did the Stone Mill landscape at New York Botanical Garden in 2010. then a new native flora garden at Brooklyn Botanic Garden in 2013. I've worked at Storm King Art Center, establishing large native grass meadows for almost 20 years. So it's been a real interesting ride, sort of a circuitous trip from Iowa to here, but here we are.
My mouth is still open. How interesting! What a interesting thing to have spent your life doing that kind of stuff.
It has been, yeah, and having the opportunity to work in a lot of different places and trying to learn enough about the landscape in those places to work there. And as Edwina knows so well, I'm a very big advocate for using native species, native plant species, which then attract native pollinators and other forms of life. And I think you can have an ecologically sound landscape that is also experientially rich with light and movement and all those good things.
Great. And Edwina, tell us about your project, the Perfect Earth.
Perfect Earth Project, yeah.
Perfect Earth Project.
Well, just relative to why Darral is here with us, one thing that we're doing is looking to create easy responses, I guess you'd say, for people to engage in the creation of landscapes that are toxin-free. And here on the East End, it is often mandated by your community that you revegetate or create a buffer zone if you're in a sensitive environment. So if you're doing a construction project, which is where I often come in as a landscape designer, and then the town mandates that you revegetate or you've overcleared or something. And the rules are somewhat non-specific, and people often end up with a very unsuccessful result because they don't know what to plant and they don't know how to maintain it. And so nobody's happy in the end because they don't like it, and so they feel that they've been forced to do something with their landscape that isn't what they wanted. And I thought that it would be an interesting conversation for us to create some models that were attractive and had a more successful outcome, and then present those to the local communities as if you mandate them this way and you give people these instructions, and both for installation and maintenance, we could increase the success and we could increase engagement, and we can make sure they're done without chemicals. So it's just one component of our many different educational programs. But since I first saw Darral speak at the Nature Conservancy in East Hampton, and I was so impressed with his presentation that I knew someday I would end up working with him, because most of my education really has been working with people who are like him, that have this wealth of knowledge, and so much of it is experiential that they've gained through doing and observing. And so I was hired to work with Maya Lynn on her wave field installation at Storm King. And when I suggested that we should really get a grass expert in as part of the team, and they said, well, we work with Darral Morrison, obviously I was rather thrilled. So ever since then,
Where is Storm King?
It's what town is that?
Mountainville or Cornwall on the Hudson.
It's on the west side of the Hudson, just south of, Beacon? No.
South of Newburgh.
Newburgh's the other side. Right, Beacon's the other side. So, yes. And it's a wonderful trip for anybody who wants to take a day trip to a beautiful sculpture park and a really amazing location. And part of the mandate for the wave field, which is an extraordinary piece of land art, so I totally recommend it. It's a great trip, but it was also done without any chemicals, and Maya wanted to make sure that we did everything in the most sustainable way possible. So even though the land didn't drain at all, we didn't want to use a plastic pipe system for drainage. We wanted to try to create a natural solution to everything there. And so one of them was getting the right kinds of grasses on the mounds. It's a series of large mounds, which doesn't sound interesting, but it's really beautiful, and it's very large. And so I wanted the grass mix to match what the surroundings look like, so it blended naturally with the surroundings. So as a landscape designer, that's often my role in projects, working to create a response to something that is both sustainable, so that the maintenance doesn't become a never-ending nightmare, and yeah, and that it works with nature as much as possible, and you still get the desired outcome. So that's what we're doing with this whole buffer and meadow project. And you may know that there was a toxic algal bloom that appeared in Georgica Pond 2 years ago.
I certainly do know that. I'm very into water.
Yeah, and everybody's beginning to be on the East End. And so that Annie Hall, who lives on the pond and has some very adorable dogs, lost one of her dogs. And so she had it tested at Cornell, and they verified it was the toxic cyanobacteria. So she's become quite active in protecting the pond and engaging the help of other owners around the pond. So we're working with her. Her buffer is going to be one of our model projects. And so Darral came, and we're visiting a number of different sites in the area to get an overview of what existing conditions are. Today we went to the parish to talk about their meadow, which is a work in progress. And we're going to Shelter Island to a project there tomorrow. And yesterday we were in Georgica and on Hook Pond as well, and also up in Springs, so that we can have all these different responses and come back to people. We also have a project called Perfect Places on our website. We encourage every professional and everyone who has a place that is made a commitment to being toxin-free. They can sign up and be on our map, and that way we'd like to celebrate. So Storm King, the Philip Johnson Glass House, those are examples of the kinds of places that we are working with.
What about Phyllis Italiano's house?
Join up. Go right on our website and
I never use
sign up.
anything toxic.
And we don't publish your address if you're a private residence. We just want to add you to the, everyone puts on the amount of property that they have taken toxin-free. And then by zip code, we'll show how many acres in each zip code, ultimately across the United States, has converted to toxin-free. So we can really celebrate everyone who joins us.
I must admit that when I see some of these lawns that are green as can be, I really want to yell out, stupid! I mean, I can't understand why that has become such a badge of, I don't know, success, I guess, whereas, I just have whatever's there, and, we cut it. And that's it.
Well, there is an in between, because you can have a really perfect. That's our play on words, because we're the Perfect Earth Project, which is we question what is perfect. At what price perfect? You are exposing your children and pets to an increased risk of autism, asthma, Parkinson's disease, and various lymphomas. There's a long list of pretty horrible stuff.
Not to mention our sole source aquifer.
118 landscape chemicals are now in the aquifer. And and you may drink bottled water, but you don't bathe in it, and you don't cook your rice in it, and you don't brush your teeth with it. So people are regularly exposed to those chemicals, no matter what. So this is something that you can do to help to prevent an increase of the chemicals going into the aquifer. And we also really like to make the point to people that the direct contact with the chemicals on your lawn, do you know, other than those of you who are doing it yourself, do you know what your chemical company or your landscape company is putting on your lawn? And they have to tell you, because it's mandated by law. And in your contract are 3 pages that you probably don't look at that lists all the things that they're putting on your lawn. And they are dangerous. And you can go on our website if you want the bad news, and there's a chart that says, this chemical does this, by name, all of them.
So it's perfectearth.org.
Perfectearthproject.org.
Perfectearthproject. Spelled out exactly as it's...
Yep, perfectearthproject.org.
And I can go on that and I can find a lot of this information.
Yes, you can.
Including the kind of seed that I could put down that would grow.
Yes, we suggest that using resilient grass seed is one of our 5 different ways to achieve a really great result without chemicals. And we really don't want people to fire their landscaper. If we want to convert their landscaper. We want to engage the whole community. We don't want anybody losing their job. Just here's a way you can do it, and you don't have to handle this stuff if you're a professional. Because that's really, we're in the business, Darral and I. We don't want the people we work with to be forced, in a way, to be handling toxic chemicals.
So how does one really begin to know what are native plants and what are not? I mean, I just got a couple of chrysanthemum bushes, you know, that I put on my front steps. And I'm thinking to myself, now, is this native? Is this part of what's out here? I know it isn't. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay. So how do I begin to develop a more native approach to my landscaping?
One way is to look at demonstration gardens, so to speak, and the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, Native Flora Garden, which opened in 2013. We used only native species, and in fact, they were grown from seed that was collected within a fairly small radius. They were collected on Long Island, Staten Island, and in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. So these are not only native to the region, but they are native to the site almost where we planted them. But you can go to gardens like that and look at the labels and learn which plants truly are native. And then there's some great references. I was mentioning one to View-Edwina today called A Guide to the Native Plants of the New York City Region by Margaret Gargiulio. And it's a comprehensive list of trees, shrubs, vines, grasses, ferns, wildflowers that are in fact native, and so that can help. Interestingly, and this is my designer side coming in, but if you use plants that grow together naturally in a particular environment, the aesthetics work. They look like they belong. And when you start collecting plants from Japan, Indonesia, and the U.S. and put them all in one landscape, they don't oftentimes look so good. And in fact, when we introduce them from somewhere else, they may become invasive in the absence of the predators that kept them in check in their homeland, so to speak. So starting with a native palette is certainly a good first step. And one can have alternative landscapes that are much more diverse and more beautiful, in my opinion, than that solid patch of dark green turf.
I agree.
They're less chemical dependent, for sure, than native plants, because obviously they've been growing here long before us and doing just fine. And
I really don't understand anybody using any kind of chemical. I really don't. But maybe it's because we have a vegetable garden where we are, and therefore we don't put anything. But I'm one of many houses, so, you know, who knows what the guy next door to me is using, you know, although the garden isn't near him or anything. But, you know, it's something that has to begin to be understood by everybody out here, that we have to do more to begin to create our perfect earth.
I think that it is just that about getting the message out to people. I think there are quite a few people who, for instance, were my clients, who we collectively didn't stop to think, you're walking across a toxic lawn to get to your organic vegetable garden? Disconnect. Like, we're initiating a conversation with the Southampton Hospital. Should they be putting carcinogenic inputs on their lawn? Should their patients be sitting on that We don't think so, and neither do they. But it was something that had never occurred to them.
Yes.
They have a landscape contract. It goes out every year. It just didn't occur to them. They have so many life-threatening issues to deal with, and this is a very slow trickle of a life-threatening experience. So it just hadn't trickled in, and that's our job, is to say to people, there's something you might have missed here. And it's an opportunity, too, for engaging your children in, for instance, a pollinator landscape as opposed to one that is basically indiscriminate, because any spray, and tick spray is a big issue because all of tick and mosquito sprays kill everything. They kill bumblebees, they kill butterflies, they kill honeybees.
Even the ones that are chrysanthemum leaves and garlic oil?
They aren't special to ticks. They kill everything. They are more repellent than a pesticide, really. So they repel everything, but they do have a contact component. And so if you use them in the middle of the day and they land on a honeybee, they're going to kill the honeybee. We do not recommend tick sprays simply because we feel that they're effective for a very short period of time. If you were to try to rid your property of every single tick or mosquito, I can't imagine the danger of what you would have done. Everything would be dead. So you just can't, because within an hour, a white-footed mouse or a deer or something will bring it back. Besides that, you would never be able to leave home, because as soon as you go to the beach, you're exposing yourself to ticks. So we worry that people who spray not only are having a considerably negative impact on the environment, but they have a false sense of security. They don't think they need to check anymore for ticks. And I got Lyme disease, and my doctor said the people who come in most frequently are people who aren't checking. They think they're not going to get it. The people who think they have protected themselves. So we say, get a good, environmentally friendly repellent and put it on religiously. Put it on your children. If you're putting sunblock on your kids, put the repellent on. Put that repellent on religiously and check yourself all the time. Is way better than nuking your property.
And strip when you come in and throw your clothes into the dryer.
Yep.
Because that's what kills them.
And unfortunately, this is an epidemic which is challenging all of us. And we don't have an easy answer. We really don't. But in the past, chemicals were our easy answer to everything. And we're smarter than that now. They haven't proven to be.
We all read Silent Spring.
We all read Silent Spring, and then we all went out and bought Roundup. We didn't know. We thought the new generation of chemicals were better than DDT. We thought they'd come up with a response that was the next thing. And now we know they weren't the next thing. I believed Roundup was harmless, and now we know
anything
it's not.
that's going to kill a plant or a bug is going to kill you, is the way I've always looked at it.
Chances are.
You know.
Yep.
And I have never trusted Monsanto or Dow chemicals
Exactly.
as long as I've lived.
I never used chemicals on my own property, but I just didn't really address what was happening on my clients' properties. And then when I decided to do this, I thought, well, first thing I better do is make sure I'm this works.
Absolutely.
So I asked all my clients.
You don't want to be exposed to that stuff on their property?
Right, and some of my clients are, extraordinarily demanding and high-profile people. So I wanted to make sure, and they all said, give it a try. It's on your shoulders. And so after a year of working with them, no one was at all disappointed with what the results were that we got. So I then felt it was safe for me to start promoting this to everyone. You can have a great lawn. And if your landscaper says it's more expensive and it doesn't work, ask them to call us. We'll train them up.
And if I go on your website, am I going to find a list of the kinds of plants? And that's what I'm interested in. What are the plants that I should be putting in that instead of the chrysanthemums that...
No, we actually just focus on maintenance without chemicals, not the alternatives, because there are other people that do that really better than we do. There's a website, so there are links to something, for instance, called The Wild Ones that talks a lot about lawn alternatives. We're not really anti-lawn. That's higher education. That's the advanced degree. We would just like to get people right now to stop spraying and applying chemicals to their properties. You don't need to spray your trees and shrubs. You don't need to feed them. Those tree and shrub spray contracts that everybody has, they're really wasting their money and also having a negative effect on their health and their environment.
So how are you going to get the word out to people? How are you going to educate people? What are you going to do?
Here we
Besides
are.
this?
Yeah.
I know, but this is only on for 5 times in a week.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but
no.
we need to do more. We need to have symposiums and lectures and, little events, the library and things like that, because this word really must get out.
I'm glad you think so. We are in conversation with 5 local communities about creating initiatives and what it would take within their community to declare themselves a toxin-free, a perfect community, perfect places. And so that then, since we could not be in every community in the United States, the question is, how do we build a package, what we call our package, PEP for Perfect Earth Project, that we could then make available to communities across the United States that they could then use within that community. So Darral is part of this. So you could build a meadow, you could create a buffer zone. So it's a recipe for success.
Well, lady and gentlemen, I can only say that my money is on you, and please go on and do it, because anything we can do to save the earth, I'm in favor of. The earth is,
Great.
It's all we got,
It's all we
folks.
Right, we don't have another
We better
one.
get wise about
Well,
it.